Well, you are a native Floridian. I am not.
I know my mangroves.
So one thing that I want you all to see, because when you talk about the impact that we have on the environment, even though there are people who think that, when we talk about man-made climate change, this is an example of man-made climate change.
I've seen this experiment. It's so good.
Do you know what this is?
Yeah, well, it's a science experiment. So what this demonstrates, but you're not seeing it without it. Well, you're seeing how the waves, right? So you see how the waves are getting stopped by the mangroves. The mangroves protect the shoreline. The mangroves protect, and more importantly, they protect the estuaries. And people who don't know, estuaries are where all the little critters come from. That's where like all the frogs and crabs, and they all go and lay their eggs in these little estuaries. They're just little ecosystems. But the mangroves keep our shoreline from being completely flooded and eroded. And that is what they do. So, I mean, this is just one of those. I've seen this kind of thing in a science museum before where it demonstrates how the mangroves protect the land.
In South Florida, particularly in the city of Fort Lauderdale, we have let's just call him what he is, an extremely corrupt mayor in Dean Trantillis. Oh. This is a person who is very tight with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and he's also very tight with Elon Musk, who intended to build an underground in South Florida, mind you, an underground.
And people think Musk is a really smart and like engineering kind of guy.
Mm-hmm. And this was initially going to be done just for Tesla drivers to get from one side of Fort Lauderdale out to A1A, where all the rich people live. And this, of course, was a completely insane idea. I don't know if it's completely been curtailed, but most people don't want any part of it. However, because of the constant dredging of the water lines to never stop building, and this is a much bigger problem, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, in blue areas.
Are you going to connect Dean Trantillis to the mangrove somehow? Is there some connection to, because you're showing the cool video of how the mangroves protect the coast. I'm not exactly sure where you're going with this.
What I'm saying is the mangroves are an essential part of our environmental makeup, especially in South Florida. Unfortunately, because of the constant dredging and overdevelopment, the mangroves are being destroyed in places like Fort Lauderdale, in places like Hollywood. This is a big environmental catastrophe that is only going to get worse, and this is 100% man-made.
Yeah, well, and this is something that's been going on here for years. So what'll happen is, it was a few years back that there was this giant new yacht marina that was being dredged over in Fort Lauderdale. And let's be real, these are for wealthy people. We're not a little fishing town. This isn't like some Portuguese fishing town where it's serving working people. So they're dredging up for this yacht marina. And those developers are always supposed to replant, and it isn't just mangroves, it's also sea grapes, but they're supposed to replant in other areas and do other things, just like developers are supposed to allow for, development of schools and stuff. But like that, they don't do it. They get the breaks, they get the subsidies, they build what they're going to build, and they don't do what they're supposed to do. And that happens all the time. And there's no enforcement. There's none of that. There's none of that. And it's just pathetic. And what they've done is they've totally demolished the coastline. It's bad enough that we don't have dunes in most places. Now, Hollywood has started some sort of project. I don't know where they are with that, where they've been, bringing back having dunes. But yeah, no, they just keep ripping out the mangroves. That's all they keep. That's all they want to do is just rip out all those pesky trees. But yeah, the majority of people that are going to suffer from this, the majority of people that will suffer from this literally on the coast are going to be the people in those high rises and those buildings that they'll inevitably not be able to live in. But c'est la vie.
Mangione monetary theory.
I'm telling you, and I get what Nina's saying. I didn't used to be a supporter of violence. Like I didn't ever feel like that. And I'm angry that I feel angry, but I am. I'm so angry. And I'm angry that I feel violent. And yeah, I do. But I got to tell you, like when I heard that someone set his house on fire, yeah, I didn't care. I didn't care. I don't give a shit. I really don't give a shit. And the nerve on him to stand there and saying we won't talk, like violence isn't the answer, while yet it was signed.
It's okay it's okay when you do it. It's not like, okay when somebody else does.
I just can't. And the truth is these people are going to learn the hard way.
They are.
You know, when Nina says things, and I agree with her, this isn't the choice. The choice would have been voting for Bernie. See, that was the choice. That was the compromise. And now we are where we are. And I also, again, would reiterate that I think that there is a lot of things that are violent that are being done that aren't necessarily what we would traditionally think of as violence. And people like Josh Shapiro are completely perpetrating violence on a daily basis. They are. They're perpetrating it and they're condoning it just by their existence and how they function in this world and by signing and agreeing to things that are killing people. So I don't see it as, oh, well, we're not going to have violence. Oh, we are. And it's just getting started. And again, I'm not the violent. I'm unarmed.
Yalabite, thank you so much for the $1.99.
Look, exactly, Philip. And yeah,
this is.
Sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
No, it's okay. And genocide is violence. This should come as no surprise because now people are starting to see just how corrupt our government really is. Now, granted, South Florida is a specific level of corruption that is not seen nearly as much around the country. South Florida is very unique in a lot of ways. It's very transient. It's very international. And there's kind of an acceptance of its corrupt undertaking. I mean, listen, Miami is a city built on white powder, and you can take with that what you want, but it's the truth. And there's also a lot to be said for.
Which is why it was better before that all happened, which is why prior to like the late 70s or whatever 70s, it wasn't like that.
Changed everything. It changed everything. It wasn't just
it was it was the cocaine, it was a lot of it. But, there was a point when Miami was kind of, there were the townies and then you had the tourists and it was that vibe. There was a time when the Fort Lauderdale airport was like a strip, like a little airstrip.
Chip, thank you so much for the $5. Great to see you. Trump was the lesser of two. I agree. I think Trump is the lesser of two evils between him and Kamala, and there's many reasons for that. If Kamala had been elected, it isn't so much that the aggressive right wing would have grown and would have thrived. It's a question of if you think censorship is bad now.
Exactly.
Kamala Harris was the ultimate puppet president. Would have done everything that the deep state asked her to do. And we would have been, I shudder at the idea of what it would have been like if she was in charge. At least with Trump in charge, you actually have a commander-in-chief where the buck pretty much stops with him. I'm sure there's decisions that he doesn't make arbitrarily on his own, but it never hurts when you actually, it's totally like he embraces the idea of being the king. He wants everyone to know that the buck stops with me. Like I'm calling the shots here. And there are people who kind of revere that notion because they don't have to question who's pulling the trigger. In some ways, that's somewhat cathartic because for the most part, we don't know who the hell's calling any shots. We certainly didn't when Biden was president. We certainly wouldn't have if Kamala had gotten